both you and I agree, and I would say 90% of Yankee fandom would agree, massive mistake.
Ugh.
Should have never traded Jordan Montgomery. Period. End of story. Should have never happened.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm Stacey Gotsulias, and with me as always is my producer, Steve Granato. Steve, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Stace, and happy Fanmail Friday, everybody. Thanks so much for clicking on the show. We have a whole bunch of questions from you guys throughout the week. You guys really crushed it this week, by the way. We got a whole bunch of them, so we had to kind of cherry pick and pick our favorite ones. So if you did not get your question in today, don't worry. Submit it again next week. Maybe rephrase it. Maybe find a different question. You guys can always submit Fanmail Friday questions on our YouTube side by replying to the pinned comment Monday through Thursday. Or, of course, you can always get priority by joining Subtext, the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. It's in the episode description. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things here today. We're going to talk about Kim Ng. We're going to talk about the rookies. We're also going to talk about the MLB playoffs a little bit later on in the show. But first, Stacey, here is our first question. Again, this is coming from our Locked On Insiders Club. This is Eric asking us, would you favor a reunion with Jordan Montgomery if he wants it, or go in a new direction? Stacey, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. I will let you take the lead.
I mean, if he wants it, yes, but I don't think he would want it after the way they treated him. You know, I mean, if he could forget the bad stuff that they said about him, then sure, but I don't think he'd want it.
So let's start here at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Both you and I agree, and I would say 90% of Yankee fandom would agree, massive mistake.
Ugh.
Should have never traded Jordan Montgomery. Period. End of story. Should have never happened. Right. It made no sense when it happened. It makes even less sense now.
Yeah, especially now that Bader's gone, and he was gone before the end of the season. It wasn't like because he's going to be a free agent. It's not like that situation.
Yeah.
It was, bye, nice to see you. Ship
Waivers,
him off,
yep.
let him. Yeah. So, disaster.
So, nightmare on all fronts right there. Should have never happened, period, end of story. 2, now that you're looking at it and what was said and the reasoning behind it, it somehow has gotten even worse. We don't want Jordan Montgomery in our playoff rotation. Look what Jordan Montgomery has done in the playoffs. And I think, Stacey, if I may be so bold, this is probably why he's been so good in the playoffs. Because he has this chip on his shoulder.
Yep.
So the Yankees have somehow shot themselves in the foot multiple times here by making the bad trade and creating a villain.
Yeah.
So, yes, get him back, but there's no way.
Yeah.
Jordan Montgomery himself has even come out and said he felt like the Yankees gave up on him. So why would he come back?
Right. That has to be an awful feeling, to feel like the team that you had been with for as long as he was just gives up on you. Awful. So no, there's no way he's coming back, obviously, unless he, someone invents that memory stick from Men in Black and they erase those thoughts out of his head and then they can bring him to the Yankees. But, that's not happening.
No chance. There's just no chance. Because you know what Jordan Montgomery wants to do? And it's not even just a Jordan Montgomery thing. This is, what any human being would want to do? Stick it to the Yankees.
Yeah, prove him wrong.
He wants to face the Yankees in the postseason and shove for 7 innings because that's what every single ball player would ever want to do.
Yeah.
And he's probably could get a chance at doing it wherever he ends up signing. Look, he would be great back in pinstripes, but I think they flew the coop already on that one.
Yeah, they have a bad habit of doing that to players, and some players they've done it to have come back. Like Jeter, Cashman and Jeter didn't have a great relationship after that whole free agency thing at the end of the 2000s. And, I don't know why the Yankees continuously do this sort of thing. It's just mind blowing to me.
It seems like there needs to be a change. Okay. Next question coming here from Kyle. Fanmail Friday, the show has talked about the past and future. There has to be key things that the Yankees have to do. Yankees player development is one. Agree or disagree? So let's kind of dissect this a little bit, Stacey. And thank you, Kyle, for your question here on the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. But so there's kind of been a weird, 20 years or so where the Yankees haven't really developed at a full-scale level. They have had to, or maybe not had to, been prioritizing getting big free agents up until more recently, right? That's kind of been the key to success. You go out and get the big name, the A-Rods, the Giambis, like you go and do that stuff. And the Yankees, since the core four haven't really developed, let's be real, like on a full scale. So yeah, they should focus on development. I think there has been a shift in that idea recently over the last couple of years, particularly on the pitching front. You're definitely seeing it with Sam Breen's mentality and how he leads the pitching ops. But yes, I would like to see kind of that mentality also taken on the position player and offensive front.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to develop people. There were people that were coming up. You think of Nick Johnson, you think of Phil Hughes, you think of David Adams, people like that. Phil Hughes was okay for a little bit, but not anything near what they were hyping him up to be. He had a kind of solid career, and when he went to the Twins, he did okay. But there were some guys that they were really hyping up and didn't amount to anything. So it's not a matter of them not having player development. It was a matter of them just having bad luck with their player development over the last 20 years.
Yeah, having success.
Yeah, and it feels like it's a little more successful recently with guys like Judge and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, they tried to have the youth. There was that one year in 2007 where they had Ian Kennedy, Jabba Chamberlain, and Phil Hughes, and they tried to push them into the rotation, and it was kind of a disaster, but they tried. And yeah, it's just, it's such a, I always joke about the playoffs being a crapshoot, but developing really good players is also a crapshoot. I mean, it's not easy to figure out what a kid's going to do when they're 18, 19, 20 and figure out, he's going to be like this by the time he's 27. Who the hell knows?
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously way more misses than there are hits in every franchise in the history of baseball. So you're just hoping that you land a couple and then you fill out with free agency in the trade market.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kyle, for your question. Let's move on to this next one coming from Betty. Would Cashman ever agree to be assistant to Kim Ng? That would be awesome. I would love to get her. Yeah, you and probably every other Yankees fan, Betty. Stace, humor me. Cashman stepping down to let Kim Ng take his job?
No. No. I mean, she left the Marlins because they were going to hire someone to oversee her. So,
yeah, what do you think? And she had only been there for 2 years?
Yeah, Cashman's been there basically since I was in high school. He started, junior high school when he started as an intern. So he's been with the Yankees forever and a day, and he's been the GM for 25 years. And no.
Let me put it to you this way. Think of your job and where you work. Would you let some hot shot come in and take your job? Would you be super cool with that and be like, I'll step back and I'll have a lesser role even though I've been here for so long? Yeah, that's not how humans work, unfortunately. While I agree with you, Betty, Kim Ng, I think, is already proven to be a pretty darn good GM. That would be nice. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I think it would be a replacement. It wouldn't be.
Yeah, you can't. That's just workplace conflict right there, man. That's so weird. That's too awkward. That's so awkward. Yeah. And as we figure, Cashman ain't going nowhere.
No.
Thank you, Betty, for your question. We have one more here in the segment. We have plenty more coming up later. Another one from our Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. Ruben asking us, if Glaber does not get traded, where does that leave Trey Sweeney? Good question, Ruben. I really like this question, and I will answer this one, Stace. Kind of as an outsider, but there's a big but here. Don't know what 2025 has in store. right? If Glaber doesn't re-sign, then Trey Sweeney's in the same standing that he is in 2024. Trey Sweeney's probably not going to make it in 24 anyway, right? That's not likely. Finished at Double-A. He had some injuries this season as well. So it's not like Trey Sweeney's knocking on the door like Oswald Peraza was knocking on the door. And, Volpe obviously was knocking on the door. So Sweeney has a little bit more seasoning before he gets to the bigs. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not one of the first calls if there's a couple of injuries. I don't foresee that not being the case. But if Glaber doesn't get traded, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't believe in Sweeney. So don't go down that path because, again, his contract ends after 2024. So I think you have to wait another year to see what the Yankees do. Do they want to re-sign him? We talked about this on the other episode the other day, right? Do they want to re-sign him? Do they want to trade him? Like, what's the plan there? Because there's the obvious logjam, even without factoring in Trey Sweeney right now. Right. But there are still some defensive situations going on there. We know what he brings with the bat. There's some consistency issues as well with Trey Sweeney. So he has a lot of talent. I've watched him personally, as a matter of fact, when he was in college. So, yes, I don't think they're like straight up giving up on Trey Sweeney or anything like that. Don't go that far if Glaber doesn't get traded. I think there are still a couple of chips that need to fall before they get to we give up on Sweeney, need to trade him or need to release or anything like that. So they're nowhere close to that right now. Thank you for your question, Ruben. We have another one coming up from our subtexter and our YouTube community checking in next. So don't go anywhere. Tons of questions when we come back.
Everyone should be ready to care for themselves and their loved ones no matter the circumstances. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. What's a Jace Case? The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use created by doctors for you. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand whenever you need it. And it now offers customization for your Jace Case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. They even offer gift cards. With the holidays rapidly approaching, buy a gift card for family or your loved ones so that they can get a Jace Case of their own and, of course, grab one while you're there. Don't get caught unprepared. Go to jacemedical.com and enter Locked On as the code at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code Locked On at Jace Medical, JASEmedical.com.
Back here on Locked On Yankees, some more questions coming your way here on this Fanmail Friday. And hey, everydayers out there, coming up next week, we have a fun episode planned for one of our 5 coming out next week. We're still Monday through Friday, as you guys know. The top 5 dumbest things of the 2023 season. You're not going to want to miss that, so make sure to hit subscribe. We're going to have a whole bunch of fun with that. So be around for that one coming up next week. All right, Stacey, some more questions. We have one more from our Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. This is coming from Bruce, saying, so I have a theory as to why baseball executives find using analytics so alluring. Could it be that it relieves them of making the subjective player decisions? When a player or a trade goes bad, they can now point to the analytics as gospel. It relieves them of any accountability. Bruce, thank you for your question. Stacey, I want to take the lead here on this one to start and maybe challenge you a little bit here, Bruce. I want you to try and think of the last time you saw a trade go poorly and then a team point to analytics as being the precursor to why that trade happened. Because to my memory, without really doing any digging or research, I don't really see a lot of front offices doing that. Stacey, are you in the same boat?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
So I think when it comes, we've talked about analytics on a handful of occasions on this show, especially recently. I feel like this is a topic that comes up a lot because of the audit and all these types of things. When you're getting to the point here, it's like making subjective player decisions, right? Like trying to relieve them of that pressure. I think that's just part of the job, man, right? That's just part of the job. Is if you're going to be a general manager, if you're going to be a president of baseball ops, you're going to be a vice president of baseball ops, you're going to be anything, AGM, any of that stuff, 90% of it is making hard decisions, right? 90% of it is telling the players, hey, you're gone. Bye. Yeah. So, like, if you don't have the chops to do that, you can't make it in the industry. That's just period. That's the job. So I don't see general managers, front offices doing that a lot. I could be wrong, but I don't see it happening that often.
I don't either. I feel like analytics has become like a dirty word recently, which is just really strange to me because people like to blame it on everything bad that happens to a team. And it just doesn't seem fair in that way because they can be really useful. It's just you have to use the right ones.
Yeah, it's applying these numbers, right? Like analytics is just a new word since sabermetrics came out, right? Since sabermetrics became the forefront of baseball front offices, now the word for sabermetrics is analytics. Analytics, in its own right, it's just numbers, right? It's just numbers. We've had numbers in baseball forever.
Literally forever. How the batting orders started happening because guys were hitting certain ways and they figured, okay, he needs to be our number 4 hitter because he does this with people on base. I mean, this stuff has been happening since the 20s and 30s. So it's not like, the 1920s and 30s. So it's not a new thing. It's just a new term.
Yeah, there's just more numbers to it now. It's just deeper. Yes. And look, I get that sometimes it seems like they're making the wrong decision, and sometimes they do make the wrong decision. But a lot of it is based on chance, percentages, and things like that, right? And some teams go too hard on it. I would agree. Taking Brandon Pfaadt out after 5 2/3. Okay, I get it. Third time through the order. I get it. But like at the same time, dude's dealing. I get it. I get both sides of it. So I don't think you're like super out of left field here, Bruce. I don't think you're like totally random, crazy question here. But again, I think you kind of got to go, okay, have I seen front office use that as an excuse, or maybe I've seen somebody say that isn't part of the front office? So just kind of think about where they're going with that. But again, analytics, we've said it a million times, are not bad. They're not a bad word. It's just more information. It's more the application of those numbers that dictate whether your team's going to be successful or not. Thank you again, Bruce. I like that question. I like a lot of the questions here today. And we have more here from our YouTube community now. This first one from our YouTube community is coming from Booyah Get Yanks. And by the way, I saw you ask a million questions. Thank you so much for being a part of our Fanmail Friday. We will try to get to some more of your questions next week, hopefully. But of course, you can always submit again if you want to submit a former one. This is the one I just picked. This was my favorite one that you submitted here this week. Out of the Yankees kids that played in 2023, who do you think will be a starter and have a breakout year in 2024? Stace, we've talked a lot about prospects this season, but we haven't really talked about prospects here in the offseason and some of the guys that could be contributing next year. So who is your pick right now here in October to contribute in April and beyond of 2024?
Oswald Peraza at third base.
Yeah.
I really feel like, he might regress a little bit defensively. And, I don't want people to jump on him if that happens in the beginning of the season in 2024. But from what I could see, he's so good athletically that you could put him anywhere in the infield and he'd be great. But he just looked so good there. Yes, there were some mistakes, but for the most part, he made some really tricky plays for someone who never really played third. I thought he did amazing. And I feel like the bat will get there. And I feel like he's going to have a solid season in 2024. Like, don't expect all-star numbers, but I feel like he's going to be one of the breakout guys in 2024.
I think Oswald Peraza will be a Rookie of the Year candidate next year. I'm going to go further than you there, Stace. And I'll tell you why. I've watched that bat. I love that swing. 1. But 2, you mentioned the defense. We know what he brings to the table defensively at short and at second. Like you said, new venture for him over at third. But guess what? Now he has third base major league time under his belt. And guess what else? He knows he's probably going to be playing there next season.
Right, so he's going to be practicing.
What is he doing all off season is working at third base.
Yeah.
So that has a lot of potential to be a big, big piece of the team next year, and I really hope he gets the opportunity because he absolutely deserves it. I'm going to take it in a completely different direction, Stacey. I'm going to give you one that is completely out of left field, jogging out of the bullpen potentially, but maybe even as a starter. I'm going to say Drew Thorpe makes the big league club at some point in 2024 and has a breakout season.
Ooh.
And that's
that
a
would be
massive
exciting.
Fast track. That's a huge fast track. He's not even 40-man.
Yeah.
I think Drew Thorpe is going to pitch so well this season that they can't ignore him. I'm buying on Drew Thorpe, man. I really like his stuff. He had a huge year. Thank you, Booyago Yanks, Get Yanks for the question here. Again, thank you for all your questions. We'll hopefully get to a couple of more next week, but you're always welcome to submit more Fanmail Friday questions. Keep them coming. Really appreciate it. And this last one here today, before we get to our playoff talk, Stace, comes from Aaron Dorch 4541. Saying, would love to see an episode where you each prepare your own Yankees offseason blueprint. Would you go hard after big names to propel back into contention as soon as possible, or would you make a series of smaller moves to build the foundation and support a young core? Love your content. Thank you, Aaron. Very kind words. And you know what's weird, Stacey? I hadn't even talked to you about this, but I actually was planning an episode like this. So Aaron and me, we're just like right there. He's already in my brain. It's a executive producer or a co-producer here on the show. But as a precursor to that, Stacey, just maybe you don't have to go all in on a full-fledged blueprint on trades and all that kind of stuff, but just some kind of markers that you want to set for the Yankees offseason this year.
I feel like I like the latter suggestion, but making smaller moves and supporting the younger core, because there also isn't a lot of great options in free agency to make a big splash, really. But I kind of like the latter suggestion, possibly. Yeah. I'll have to investigate, though, but I feel like I like that one.
I think where you can make a big splash here in this regard, if you wanted to go big splash, quote unquote, is look to last offseason, and we talked about it this week on the show, Pablo Lopez, Luis Arias. That's a type of move that benefits both teams in an area of need for both teams. And I think there's an opportunity, because the Yankees were so silent at the deadline that really all they did was lose Juan Corella for Keenan Middleton. That, yes, maybe that was a bad move. Maybe. You don't know yet. Juan Corella is still really young. But I think you can kind of deal from some of your youth here in positions that you don't necessarily think are going to have a huge impact in the future if you're betting on the older guys, i.e., I'm looking at Jared Cerna as a potential trade piece the Yankees might have where it's not going to impact you for the next handful of years. And it's also might not going to impact you because you still have Trey Sweeney at that spot. You still have Oswald. You still have Cabrera. You still have Volpe. You still have all these pieces right there that are much closer that you can kind of give up, because guess what's right behind Jared Cerna? George Lombard Jr. So you kind of have these little pieces here where you deal through your depth, which is middle infield help. And I think that could turn into as a piece of a trade that can get something back that could be impact at the major league level. So again, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that in our blueprints later on in the offseason. So make sure to check on that later.
So you're saying the Yankees have to hire Kim Ng because she's the one that made that move.
Look. I'm not saying no. A lot of teams could benefit with Kim Ng in their front office. Thank you all for your questions. We really, really appreciate it. We love our Fanmail Friday episodes. Again, if you want to get Fanmail Friday priority, all you got to do is join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club by signing up with Subtext. It's a texting service. You can text Stacey. You can text me straight to your phone right away. Nice and simple. And you also get Fanmail Friday priority. You can pitch episode ideas, kind of like Aaron just did, even though we were going to do that anyway. But did like that, Aaron. Don't worry. But you can pitch episode ideas. We have some coming in the bank that some of our insiders also submitted. So don't worry. Those are coming very soon. It's a long off season. We got a lot of stuff coming your way. Don't worry. All right. Still postseason, however. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about the NLCS again. Game 3 was a wild one. Let's talk about that when we come back.
The MLB playoffs are underway, which means now's your chance to get 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. Baseball has never been more exciting than it is now, with the ALCS and the NLCS proving that October baseball is the absolute best time to be a sports fan. Pick more or less on stats for the big stars like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more for up to a 100-time payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you could win big. I'm StaceFace826, so you can connect with me over there. Just because your personal fantasy team didn't go anywhere doesn't mean you have to miss out on winning this season. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply, and you can see Sleeper's terms of use for details.
Back here on Locked On Yankees, our final segment of the week here, Stacey. Another week of the postseason down. And as we're recording this, as we always tell you when we're talking about the postseason, we're in the middle of the Astros-Rangers Game 4. And the Astros already jumping out to a 3-0 lead. It's only the second inning that we're currently recording this in. So Astros making a big comeback. But we're here to talk about Phil's D-backs Game 3. Series shifted to Chase Field. Stace, 47,000 people showing up on a weekday in Phoenix. Remember, it was like it was a 2:00 game.
Yeah.
Phoenix time. 47,000 people showing up. Shout out the desert, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure Rays fans were looking at that and being like,
Yeah, well, I feel bad for Rays fans, man. Like, being a fan of a team where the fan base doesn't show up, that really, like, that's really such a stick in the mud type stuff.
Yeah.
But man, what a duel, dude. Yeah. Like this game, I was talking about Rangers Suarez. I think it was during the NLDS, and I was like, man, if Ranger Suarez is going this deep, like, that's crazy that the Phillies are getting that. Like, that's how you know the Phillies are good right now, is Ranger Suarez is going to. No knock on Ranger Suarez, but he's not supposed to be, like, pitching at ace levels. And he did it again. Like, it's incredible what he was able to do against this, like, D-backs offense, which was on fire against the Dodgers.
Yeah. I was impressed with how he was pitching, and, God, some of his pitches are amazing.
He's filthy.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And then on the flip side, who is that guy that was pitching for the Diamondbacks?
Brandon Pfaadt. See, this is what I love about playoff sports. So I've talked about this on a handful of occasions on the show. My Lakers fan my whole life. And to see guys like Austin Reeves turn into like stars overnight, or like Lonnie Walker just turn into a star for one night. I know he didn't have the same type of postseason run, but that's where Brandon Pfaadt is coming in for me here. I'm like, this is a guy that I saw pop up a couple of times this season. I'm like, oh wow, who's this guy? Like, I didn't see this guy coming through the prospect pipeline. I just missed this guy. And then he just kept like, 6 shutout. 7 innings of 2 runs. Like, I just kept seeing that. And then now that he's stepping up on the biggest stage, I'm like, yo, Brandon Pfaadt, man, making me a believer. Like, I think the D-backs getting into the postseason is, I mean, great for baseball, A, but B is so cool because they have so many guys that don't always get the spotlight, even though they should, like guys like Zach Gallen. Like, look, Gallen in baseball circles, you know it, but outside of baseball circles, no one knows who Zach Gallen is, right? But now these guys are getting the spotlight, and I think it's really cool, man. I love it.
Yeah, because, when no offense to the Diamondbacks, but when you talk about the NL West, it's the Dodgers, the Giants, and Padres, no matter what they're doing. And the Rockies and the Diamondbacks are kind of like overlooked because, they don't usually do much. And this year, the Diamondbacks, they were leading the division for a while, and then they lost it, and they dispatched the Dodgers. And they're doing what they're doing. And it's great to watch this. And there are a lot of young guys on that team. A lot of guys that people, even baseball fans, don't even know that these guys exist, because there is kind of like there's an East Coast bias, there's that bias I just spoke about with the top of the division. And a lot of people don't know most of the guys on the Diamondbacks. So when they come out and perform like this, you're just like, wow, where did these guys come from? And it's cool to watch that, because you're like, oh, okay, there are more guys we can watch. And his pitches were insane. Like, some of the movement on them, I was just like, I love this stuff. This is my favorite thing in the world. It's pitches dive out of the way and the guys don't know. Like, there was one pitch on Stott that just fooled him so badly. And I was like, wow, that was really impressive. It was for strike 3. Like, he swung at a pitch that was nowhere near the zone, but completely fooled him because of his arm slot. And I was just like, wow, this kid is good.
Yeah, let alone the pen from both sides. I mean, like, I already mentioned Ranger Suarez. Obviously ended up being a walk-off there for the D-backs. Boy, do they need that massively. Ketel Marte has had a huge series already. He's had a huge postseason. He's had a huge season, period. But for him to come up and tag that high fastball against Craig Kimbrell, which, man, I don't know. How do you feel? Like, we don't have a ton of time left here today, Stace, but how do you feel about Craig Kimbrell? I really like him, and I've always liked him since his Braves days. Like, obviously the arm thing was like a kind of a meme for a little while. It's not really anymore, but like, how do you feel about Craig Kimbrell. He was an all-star this year, but I still feel like every time he steps on the mound, it's so shaky.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it also feels like he's been playing for 20 years and it feels like he's never going away. And he's always somewhere in the playoffs or somewhere, you know, in the middle of things. And it's just kind of amazing to watch. But yeah, it is very shaky watching him sometimes.
Yeah, it's so weird. 'Cause even in the All-Star game, he had shaky moments.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that. That wasn't that many months ago.
No, it wasn't. It was only July. Yeah. Shout out D-backs. Shout out the Serpientes. Shout out Phoenix. And shout out my whole family, who, by the way, is tons of Diamondbacks fans in my family, who all live in like that area, in the Phoenix metro area and outside in Arizona. So yeah, lots of D-backs fans in the Granado family. So pretty cool. I'm super excited for them and glad that they made it a series here, man. They made it a series and now head into Game 4 with a chance to tie the set. So that's huge, man. But super cool. Great game. Probably the best. Man, that might have been one of the best NL games of the postseason so far.
Yeah, because we were talking about it the other day. They either the one team goes out to a big lead and it's kind of like great.
Yeah.
And this one at least was really close the entire time, and they were just like scratching and clawing for runs because it wasn't that easy for them to get the first 2 runs each team. So yeah.
Closest NL game since the Braves came back and took down the Phils in Game 2 at the bank. That's like those are the 2 best games I've seen so far on the NL side. So super great. We will talk, of course, postseason, the rest of the postseason here on Locked On Yankees. So you can always come here for a little bit of postseason talk, even though the Yankees aren't a part of it. That's coming up next week, just like our next episode here coming up in a few days. The top 5 dumbest things of the 2023 season. Subscribe and you won't miss it. And that's going to do it for another edition and another week of Locked On Yankees. I'm Steve Granado.
And I'm Stacey Gatsoulias. We'll see you on Monday.